Inaugural trip of the first train to Pemberton. And this is, of course, the reenactment of the Pacific Great Eastern, which was originally started out as the Howe Sound, Pemberton Valley, and Northern Railway. Much more exciting and romantic than PGE. However, we're going to take you back to 1914 when the dignitaries were assembled on the stage platform in Squamish, and they were ready for this first ride into the hinterland of British Columbia. Now, a word of caution to the historical members of our audience. We've tried to be historically accurate, but in some cases our history got a bit bent and we had to reinvent some of it. So just remember, the essence of the program is to take you back and give you a feel of what it might have been like. The completion of the rail line to Pemberton was the first step in providing rail access to the interior of this province. We have some dignitaries who are making this trip and who will be making remarks about the remarkable achievement. Yeah, a little alliteration there. The parts of the key members of the party are as follows. Premier McBride will be played by our MLA, Jordan Sturdy. The contractor of the railroad, Mr. Pat Welch, will be played by Dave Midgley. They're identified as the key personnel by their elegant hats and their resplendent finery for this occasion. The local resident, Mr. Bill Spetch, will be played by Councillor Mike Rickman. And our last actor portraying a soon-to-be resident of the Burkett area, Sigrid Gims, will be played by Susie Gims from the SLRD. And now, let's go back 100 years and have a look at what might have happened. Ladies and gentlemen, the train is ready and for this historic ride to Pemberton. But before we depart, please welcome Premier McBride, who's been a major player in having this reality become a reality. Applause! Yay! But this is the best I can do. All right. Patrick, well, here it is. We have with us today the contractor of the railway, and we'd like to invite him to say a few words on behalf of the tremendous job that they did here today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you for the warm welcome. Building this railroad from Squamish was not an easy task. There was considerable rock work to be done and bridge building over roaring creeks. We were fortunate to have the construction equipment from the Grand Trunk Railway, Pacific Railway, in Prince Rupert. This was a formidable challenge, but it was overcome, and now, 1 year later, here we are in Pemberton. The next step is to head along the lakes to Lillooet and on to the interior. Thank you all.
Hey. Coming to this valley was not an easy travel in the old days. And we're fortunate to have a future resident who's able to visit this area without all the hardships that earlier residents had to endure. Welcome, Sigrid Gim.
Thank you. You have no idea what a pleasant ride it was from Squamish. My husband Carl had to travel by horse over the horrid and difficult Pemberton Trail. What a journey that was. The train ride is sheer luxury and took only 4 hours. As I plan to move and settle here, this new form of transportation will be easier. Thank you to the railroad for this modern convenience. Now, of course, Sigrid Gims and Carl Gims immigrated from Norway in 1925 and first settled in the Pemberton Valley and then later moved into the Birken area. Over the years, Sigrid Gims saw firsthand how the railway benefited the community and improved the quality of life for the local people, including her family. Her husband Carl first came to the Pemberton Valley to haul ties for the railway. He later bought a farm in Birken, where he and his son Gunnar milled ties for the railway expansion. Sigrid was Pemberton's first dentist, and much of her equipment came in here by rail, which incidentally is on display in the museum. The railway made postal service possible to many small hamlets along the rail line, and as a result, we see small communities developed throughout the region. Suddenly, access to goods and services increased, and judging by the many old catalogs we found in Sigrid and Carl's attic, this was a welcome amenity. Groceries from Woodward's, farm equipment, and parts arrived by train. In fact, most things arrived by train, including my husband Jeff's first bicycle, which was an Eaton's glider. They shipped cream to market by rail. We still have some of the old cream cans. In fact, one's on my front porch. On the top of the can is simply written the name, Gims, and the railway station, Birken, and it managed to get to market and back to Birken to be refilled. The railway also made travel between communities much easier. Family and friends were able to gather more frequently and have access to much needed services. So I've shared with you just a few examples, just really to highlight the fact that the railway played an integral role, not just in the development of the Pemberton area in terms of commerce and agriculture, but in the social and cultural well-being of the community as well. For those of you that don't know the connection, Sigrid Gims was my husband Jeff's grandmother, and I'd just like to take this opportunity to thank the museum. Present here today is some of Sigrid's great-grandchildren and great-great-grandchildren, and we're very fortunate to have the museum that has preserved and showcased a lot of this community's history for members of the community and future generations to enjoy. That was not done without the dedication by very many community members, and so on behalf of the Regional District, thank you very much to the museum, board, staff, and those members that helped make it all possible.
Kind words for the museum. They worked very hard to produce these little vignettes so that you might have a better connection with the past, and so that maybe that'll make the future an easier road to travel. And now we have a gentleman here that's been settled on All Creek for quite a while, and he certainly will benefit from the arrival of the railroad. Let's have a welcome for Mr. Bill Spetch.
Very much. I can't tell you how happy I am to see the railroad come to town. Why, already we have a new hotel, and soon businesses will be flocking to this area. The business potential is enormous, and with the thick forests and fertile land. Now farmers can actually have a market for their produce. Now that we have quick and easy access to the city, this valley will really grow. Congratulations to the railroad. And on behalf of myself and council, I would like to thank the museum, Nikki and George especially, the countless hours they put in to keeping these stories alive for us. Our history isn't long here in Pemberton, but it's very rich, and a lot of this would be lost to us if it wasn't for the work of Nikki, George, the board, and the staff. Thanks all.
Thank you, Stuart. And now, the man who made it all happen, with his government help, of course, Premier McBride. A big hand for our province's Premier.
Thank you all, and what a great day for the Pemberton Meadows and the Pemberton area. The concept of building a railroad to the interior to tap the riches of mining, forestry, farming, and cattle has long been a dream. All these riches will soon start to flow down this railroad, and all British Columbia will share the benefit from access to these resources. But folks, this is the beginning, and the Pemberton Link is the first major step. The plan is to keep building to Lillooet, Clinton, Quesnel, and Prince George. The whole corridor will grow and prosper. This is indeed a significant to making this province more united and more productive. All British Columbians will join you in celebrating this major first step. And I think it's a good point. It's a point well taken. So thank you, Premier McBride. And it really was the first step into building the interior, accessing the interior of this province. Up until the time that this railway was developed, the only way in was through the Caribou Wagon Road, through the Fraser Canyon, and it was very limited. There was limited access to opportunities around cattle and forestry, and this rail line really did lay out much of this province. In fact, the layout of this town and the layout of the subdivisions around here essentially was done in conjunction with the development of the railway. So it really has provided the template on which this community is built and will be built in the future. So it is a real pleasure to be here, and on behalf of the province, I do want to thank the Pemberton Museum for bringing everyone together to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the Pacific Great Eastern, which is a bit ironic, although it is Pacific. To start off, it wasn't terribly great, and it certainly wasn't Eastern, so I'm not quite sure where the name did come from, but it eventually evolved into BC Rail, the BC Railway Company. The railway did play a large role in the development of the Sea to Sky corridor, as it did in the whole province, connecting logging and mining operations throughout the interior, and provided access to the coast for the interior of British Columbia, allowing the province to move resources to market by rail and by sea. It also changed the way of life for people and for farmers and residents in the area. Travel to Vancouver became a 9-hour journey instead of a several-day journey. It increased access to services, customers, amenities, and helped boost the income of many people, both farmers and businesses and residents. The railway also provided jobs for many in the area and helped spur development of Pemberton and surrounding region. It wasn't until 1956 that the railway finally made its way to North Vancouver, from North Vancouver to Prince George, but in the preceding years, its expansion helped shape Pemberton's development. It played an integral role in industrialization, in connecting the province, in opening up new markets, and laying the groundwork for how the province transports goods to our customers. We owe the railway a lot of thanks, because without it, we would not necessarily be considered Canada's gateway to the Pacific. And I think you do see that many of those statements which reflect the history of this province also really do reflect our future. So it's been a great pleasure, and thank you, George, for inviting me and inviting all of us to take place and to take part in this, and thanks to the Heritage Museum, West Coast Heritage Museum, for bringing the train up. And I guess we're all that's standing. I'm all that's standing in the way between you and a ride on the train. So. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Jordan and David, Mike, and Susie. All right, that concludes our formal part of the program. This is indeed a 100th, almost 100th. It was October the 29th, and we didn't think you'd want to be standing out here in a snowstorm cheering for the railway. At any rate, we do have the mini rail, which, as far as we know, is the first passenger service in Pemberton since the late 90s when they discontinued the mud car. At any rate, this train is equipped to take adults who get just as much of a kick out of riding it as the kids. Anyway, we have Betty cooking real French fries from Pemberton Spuds is back there, and you can welcome to have lunch. There's lots of activities for kids on grounds, so hang around a while, pay a visit, see what we've got in terms of exhibits, and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you all for coming.